Hey, welcome to Sports Unfolded NHL ranking show. A little different though. We're doing playoff edition. I am your host, Eric. My main man over there, Ron. How are you
Hi.
doing? Hi. So, Ron, obviously some things have changed. We have our final.
Wait, some things have changed?
Some things have changed.
Just some.
Just some. We have our final 8. We will review each of the matchups. But as a Boston Bruins fan and our
Oh,
local
am I?
team, we will discuss the Boston Bruins and the breakdown with their Game 7 loss to the Florida Panthers recently. Ron, I'll let you start off with how obviously you think they got to this point and why they lost Game 7.
Um, well, everything was fine until, and I don't want to use this as the reason. Everything was fine until Bergeron came back, right? I mean,
Agreed.
it was a little sloppy, in a few games there, and you kind of see the things creeping in. But it's almost like the whole team said, "Hey, you know what? Bergeron is back, so he's going to do everything." That's what it felt like to me, because then it was like a complete breakdown of this team that dominated pretty much the whole season, and they didn't do anything that brought them there.
Yeah,
Nothing.
I would say, look, 7-game series. I think overall they were sloppy in almost every game. A lot of
Yes.
turnovers,
Yes.
very poor in the neutral zone. Could not seem to advance the puck into their zone. Very slow to the puck, and I
Yeah.
think we saw that very consistently. Where that Game 7 where they lost in overtime, there were 2 Bruins there to get to that puck, and somehow Florida Panthers player beats them to it, makes that outlet pass, and then obviously the rest is history. Uh, would you question though? Is Patrice Bergeron and listen, he's been a legend in Boston, but he's lost more than he's won. And do you think maybe they rushed him back, trying to get him into Game 5 when they probably didn't need him at that point and sit him out till the next series? That would have been more beneficial for the team.
Well, he has a herniated disc. He probably should not have been playing. But I mean, that's the one thing that we love from that guy. Like, he plays through it.
I
And,
get it, but at some point, if you're hurting the team and it's not
well, I don't,
beneficial, would
I
it?
don't think he was hurting the team. I still think he was better than a lot of players that put that jersey on in this series. But the fact that this team didn't even need him to be in there for this series, they should have been able to take care of business, but they didn't. And I think he went back because he saw something happening. And unfortunately, I don't think he could do anything about it.
Yeah, look, we you talked about the defensemen. Uh,
They were horrible.
they literally were non-existent for the majority of the series.
Oh my!
Lindholm, Lindholm, I don't believe he even had a point in the
He
entire
was
series.
terrible. He was terrible.
Uh, so I don't know where.
Eric, I saw mistakes from almost everybody. The best defenseman in the series was Forbert.
Mhm.
You know, and yes, he's going to still make some mistakes, right? And we know that. That's why he's a sixth pair. I mean, a third pairing, right? But he is solid defensively, but you can't compensate for all the mistakes that the players were making. I mean, you're talking like when Clifton was there. I mean, clearly just giving it up, just giving up, and he wasn't hitting, nearly as effectively. He wasn't playing sound positionally, and that goes along with Lindstrom, Lindholm rather.
Yeah,
Charlie McAvoy was not very good in this series.
agreed.
He kept coughing up the puck in on a lot of bad spots. Grizzlick wasn't that great. All of them. They were all Carlo, same thing, but it was it's just glaring, those bad giveaways. They were just glaring
Yeah,
because they scored on all of them. And until the playoffs, Omar was there to bail them out. Swayman was there to bail them out, and they were not very good either.
Yeah. Yeah. So the goaltending situation was a little questionable. Allmark, that injuries that again you find out after they lose the series.
Yeah.
So again, I know we disagree a little bit, but I would have liked to seen Swayman a little earlier in this series, at least to give him.
Oh, well, I would have put him in Game 4, like you
some
said
ice
before
time.
the show.
Yeah.
I
And
would have
then
put him in
not
there.
Game 7 where it's a must win, and
But
that's
at
his
that
first
point,
action.
you kind of had to put him in because you needed to change the team.
I agree.
It wasn't a knock on Omar, even though he was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But it was because the team was bad in front of him.
Yeah. The team just didn't play well. Again, so many turnovers. Listen, Bertuzzi, we got to give him credit. Came over. He had a great series. 10 points. Brad Marchand was
fantastic.
He was great as well.
And
10
I feel
points.
bad for Marchand because like that guy never gives up. Never. And you can see the pain on his face when, he's looking up at the scoreboard late in the game and you just see it on his face.
Yeah.
It's like this one, we needed this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, overall, I thought Pasternak could have had a better series. Again, 5 points in the whole series.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was as aggressive as he could have been. Yeah. So, him not being as aggressive, Krejci looked old. Right? It looked like, again, a guy that came back.
He looked done.
Right? And so there were some things in this game that question. And then you still got to question Montgomery and some of the coaching decisions with the defensemen in benching certain guys. And I thought that there was some questionable moves there defensively as well. I thought that broke some of the rhythm up as well.
Well, see, I don't think the guys that he was putting in, I don't think that was really the issue because of the fact that there was injuries throughout the season and these guys all performed all year long, every one of them. And when you're taking out Clifton to put in Grzelcyk and vice versa, that isn't the problem. It's all the mental breakdowns that they had that was the problem, and it was widespread. I mean, you're talking Hathaway was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say this, if you look at the fact that the coach usually has the pulse of the team and is able to kind of gauge where they're going, as great as Montgomery was during the regular season, I thought he took a step back in the playoffs because I didn't feel like he got a base on where this team was heading, and you could see it falling apart each game. The poor turnovers, the lack of effort to get to a puck, they were getting out hit. They were being outskated for the most part in this series. And yet Montgomery just kept trying to tinker with lineups and kept moving guys around instead of really putting some pulse on this and say, look, these guys going to have to be the guys. Bertuzzi, Marchand, you guys are going to have to be the ones that get us going and not keep messing with the line as much as he did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? I mean, this is, you can't blame this on Cam Neely and Don Sweeney. You can't blame it on them.
No, they loaded up.
Give you the opportunity.
All in. All the chips were in, and it's going to cost them next season because now they don't really have any capital to rely on for next season.
Right. So you have a 9 free agents, including all those new players that you just got. You also have now got, Pasternak making, $11 million.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? Like five more than what he was getting. So that just took away 2 players, right? Or maybe one really good one.
Yeah.
Which Bertuzzi, right? Because he's probably going to demand 4.5.
His stock went way up.
Oh yeah.
His stuff for his playoffs, his stock. It actually hurt the Bruins that he played so well because now his numbers just went up.
Right. So you're not going to probably be able to retain him. And I know the Bruins want to. So now it's a choice of, well, do we keep him and maybe move on from somebody else that's still on the team that isn't a free agent? And that's also a possibility. You have to figure out if, Bergeron is coming back. I doubt Krejci is coming back.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. He didn't look good in the playoffs.
The emergence of Zacha at center probably all but assures that no Krejci is coming back. and that would be the right choice. No offense to Krejci. He's been a great Bruin, in his career, but he was brittle this year, out for some games here and there, and he was not good in the playoffs, which was where he shined most of the time. And that I think is gone. I mean, you got to see if you can fit Bertuzzi or Orloff, on this roster. I doubt it because you have Orloff, you have Forbert, you have Clifton. They're all free agents. So that means Zaboral is going to be more important to them. But you're judging now on what your performance is on the playoffs, and that's going to leave a lot of holes because you have like Noshik and Hathaway. You're going to have a whole probably new fourth line. So, I mean, this team's going to go through changes, and there's going to be a lot of rookies on this team. So, guessing at it, it looks like, you're going to have a center to fill because you might not even keep Frederick, who scored 17 goals this year, but he was nowhere to be found really in the playoffs. And I know he sat out a game. I don't know if it was due to injury. I find it hard to believe it was, but it could have been. But again, when he came back into the lineup, he wasn't playing much.
So let me ask you this question, Ron. Olmark, Swayman, obviously, I think Olmark has a no trade clause. I don't think you can move on from Olmark. Not that you would want to based on what he did last season in the regular season. Swayman, do you think he has some value? Is that a piece that maybe the Bruins look to move to try to from a cap space or getting some players that maybe
I mean, that could happen. It could happen. I mean, it depends on, Kincaid and anybody else in the organization. Personally, I'd rather keep the both of them because, if somebody falters, you have that other guy that's a top-notch guy. And I wouldn't want to be, a team that all of a sudden finds themselves without a goaltender. I mean, that could help next season when you're looking at a pretty new roster, really. I mean, you're looking like you're going to be changing like 6-7 players in that lineup, and that's going to be big to have goaltenders that you can count on. So I think they'll be sitting and where they are, and it's just a matter of what they can piece in. If Bergeron decides to play again, that's where they have to start.
What direction do you think that's heading? What would you say if you were a Boston, not a Boston Bruins fan? Let's take the heart piece out of it and your emotional towards the player. Do you think he returns, and should he return?
I think he's got one more year. I think Don Sweeney and Cam Neely are going to sit down with him, and they're going to say, okay, well, there's probability that Krejci's not coming back. Will you tutor, say, Lysell, if he's the one that ends up being that fourth center? Because they're not going to keep Noshik. They're not going to keep him because they're not going to pay him because they have to cut back somewhere, and that's where you got to do it. So you got to bring in a rookie to come in, and take that fourth line like every other team does, and so if he's there for a year to bring this kid along, I think that's a good way to start. And if he ends up being something, then, that's great. Then Bergeron did his job. And I think so. I think he stays for one more year. Doesn't matter if Krejci comes back or not. I think he stays for one more year because then he's going to have to teach somebody. So
a couple more questions before we move on to the rest of the teams that are in the NHL playoffs. I did want to ask you, a lot of speculation about players running the team versus the coach. They wanted to make a change. Do you think that hurt them now come playoff time where, again, it felt like the players were making some of the decisions or some of the moves, and then when Montgomery decided to make some decisions, they weren't working as well.
Well, I mean, until we really know for a fact that happens, I mean, look, you have Bergeron that's been there forever. You have Hall that's been around and an MVP. You know, you have Marchand and Pasternak and Krejci. That's a lot of veterans. It's a lot of veteran presence. So then you have to wonder, well, why did things break down? You know, I mean, there's enough veterans, and we had this conversation.
Yeah, prior
It's
to
like
the series, yeah.
these things are not going to come around, you know, for more than a couple of games because of that presence, right? Well, if that's the case, then why did they break down? You know, and that's a good question. And I think there's only a few people that really know the answer to that. And if it doesn't come out, it's not, you know, it's not going to be known.
Yeah.
And we're just left to speculate. And I don't want to speculate yet. Let's see if there's any comments and see who does go.
Yeah.
You know,
So my last question about the Boston Bruins. We'll move on to talk about some other teams. But the President's Cup and that curse now that has seemed to be, two teams in the last 20 plus years has won
Yep.
the Stanley Cup. Do you think that it hurt this team that they went all in the regular season to get those wins? And again, they looked tired. They looked older. They looked a little bit, out of sync. Like the pressure was so much greater because of what they did during the regular season. Could have that been a factor with them winning the President's Cup and the style they won it? They didn't just win the President's Cup. They broke the NHL record.
Yeah, I still don't think that was why. I still don't think that was why. It was just, I mean, because when you're playing during the season, you have some stretches against good teams and stuff like that. But you play different style teams. This was a perfect storm for everybody to second guess that because, look what happened. Look how they went out, right? But you're also playing a very physical team day in, day out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that is what broke the Bruins down. The physicality, because to me, it looks like they were bullied.
I agree with the physicality. I would also say the speed. They were very fast to the puck.
I just think they wore down the Bruins.
Yeah, you could see it.
That's what happened.
Yeah, any passes, no crisp. They always got their stick on a pass. Nothing was clean. It just seemed like the pressure got greater and greater, and you could feel that on the shoulders of the Bruins players. You'd watch, and even when they were down and they'd come back, it wasn't the same as during the regular season where they just felt like, okay, we've got this. We'll third period, we'll just go through and do what we need to do. You could see it weighing on them. And again, you go up 3-2 in game 7. You've got a minute left to basically throw your body at every single puck that's going towards that net to make sure nothing comes even close. And they got sloppy. They got sloppy. McAvoy just basically tried to put his stick out, and it ended up costing him. And I think at the end of the day, hopefully they learn from this and it's a lesson learned. But to your point, it's going to be a whole different team next year that may have to, we may be seeing, this was the greatest dynasty probably in hockey because of the fact that they've been doing it so consistently for so long. They've had 3 President's Cups in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, I believe so.
And yet, no championships to speak of for it. So, I think to your point, it's time to move on with certain guys, and we'll have to see who they decide to move on with. That Bergeron situation is going to be really key because if he comes back and he's not Bergeron, then people are going to question too why they did that move based off of what you saw in the playoffs. I don't
think that's a problem. I think Bergeron will be fine. Look, the guy just he's a good player. He stays in shape, so I don't question his ability if he comes back another year. I don't question that because look what you got this year. He was fantastic again, and with with Bergeron back, at least you know you're still going to have two solid lines, and you're still going to probably make the playoffs with that. But if he doesn't come back, then that kind of shakes it up a little. It's really difficult to gauge on the direction that they can go because of if players want to make a little more than what they did, which they probably all want to,
I would think so.
then you would think they're not going to be able to re-sign any of those players. Because you're looking at Noshik and Hathaway off of that fourth line. You're talking Frederick, who's a restricted free agent, and Bertuzzi, Krejci, Bergeron, Forbert, Clifton,
Yeah.
Orloff. I mean, that's a lot you have to. And I mean, when you look at the player that Orloff was for the Bruins, I mean, why wouldn't you want that? But can you even keep him? So I guess you could if you moved on from, say, a Lindholm. Just saying.
It's going to be tough. Then they signed him to a big contract last year, so
I know.
So it'll be interesting. Well, we'll move on, Ron. Thank you for your Bruins insight. I know it's been painful the last day or two, but look,
You think?
there's still some really good hockey out there, and some surprises. A lot of different matchups that we weren't expecting.
I'll tell you, there is still a lot of good hockey out there, but they all got eliminated. Just saying.
Yeah, most of them. That right. So we'll talk about it. Let's start off right.
This is a nightmare, Eric, for the NHL. Think about the markets that are gone. Boston's out.
Yep.
New York is out. LA is out. And of course, Detroit and Chicago never made it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're big markets. I think though that listen, the most watched NHL game in history now was that Bruins Florida seventh game, sorry. And so people are watching. There was an interest. Yeah. It might have been because again, could Goliath be defeated? And it was, but I like this first matchup we're going to talk about. The Kraken, Seattle Kraken beat the defending champions, the Colorado Avalanche, right? We didn't think it was possible. You kept telling me Colorado's going to be fine. It's, Seattle took the first game. It's okay. Colorado's the better team. We're seeing some of these teams that we didn't expect because they're younger, they're faster, they're getting to the puck. And the Dallas Stars, who last year we said that one of their biggest hurdles was trying to score, and they're still not scoring, but they're doing enough to win their series. They beat Minnesota 4-2. What about this matchup that entices people that should want to watch this?
Well, because it's first of all, the Kraken is a new franchise. So that is going to get the curiosity factor up. How are they even possibly doing this? But they got some young kids there that are playing fantastic. And it's not, they're not wowing you in some certain category. Like they don't have the best goaltender.
Nope.
They don't have the top scorers. They don't have the top defenseman. But it's that consistency in all of the areas, including special teams, that's making them get through everything. And when you talk about the Avalanche, they were playing undisciplined. You got guys getting suspended, guys leaving the team because of off ice issues. Injuries. I mean, that team has been a mess. It seems like that hangover has lasted the whole season for them. Even though they put it together, they still made the playoffs. And, it was on coast the whole way, including the playoffs.
Yeah. So Dallas, Roop Hintz leads the NHL in playoff points right now, 12 points per game. Jake Ottinger, 5th overall with 2.01 goals against. So we talk about a goaltending, but then can't knock Kraken's goaltender, Philip Grubauer, 2.44. He was 8th so far in the playoffs. So he's doing some things. And their penalty kill, Ron, 88.9% penalty kill, Seattle, which is 2nd overall. So if you look at it, look, you're glowing. That's how excited you are about it. So to your point, special team standpoint, they're horrible on the power play.
Yeah.
Seattle, 14.3%. Whereas Dallas, 37.5% on the power play. Can the Kraken slow them down, make sure that their power plays are consistent, they get their kills? They have opportunities here. To your point, look, we didn't expect them to beat the Avalanche. Would you not say the Avalanche are a better team than the Stars based on the players that Colorado had?
The way Colorado played, no. You know, like, just look, Makar getting a penalty, I mean, a suspension is just one of those problems that, they were just playing uh, too loose.
Yeah.
It's like without a care because they've been there, they feel like they're entitled, and that did not go over very well. And Kraken just played their game and they had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But Dallas is a little more disciplined.
Yeah. Best defensive team right now.
Yeah, they got a better goaltender as well.
Yes.
Let's face it, Colorado didn't exactly have a game changer. So when you're not firing on all cylinders, it's harder to get through without that top goaltender. But here they got to play Dallas, who has a good balance of players. I mean, yeah, you'd like them to score more, but they score enough because all you have to do is just basically score 2 or 3 goals, and you're on your way to a victory.
Yeah, Jason Robertson, 7 points so far
right
in these playoffs. He's been a guy that we talked about consistently all year long. And then I'd like to point out too, look, 2.33 goals against as a team, best in the playoffs so far. So Seattle's going to have a tough time scoring.
Right.
They only scored 2.57 goals so far in these playoffs, which was 12th overall out of the 16 teams. They've got to figure a way to get the puck in the net. If they don't do that, Dallas, I think this is a quick, easy one for Dallas, honestly. If you look at the numbers and based on how Dallas has played.
It should be. And I think the advantage that Dallas gets is that, oh, wait, Kraken just beat Colorado. So that is in their heads now. It's like, oh, we got to take this series serious. And, this is a wake-up call for those underdogs that won.
Yeah.
This is a wake-up call for the teams that are now playing them.
And to your point, look, Seattle, that might have been their Stanley Cup. That's that first playoffs. They beat the Colorado Avalanche, who, again, we talk about the David and Goliath thing.
Yeah.
Nobody gave them a chance in that series.
I didn't either.
So you see it happen. They may take a step back and say, okay, well, if we beat the Avalanche, right, we should be able to beat the Stars. And I think, to your point, the Stars have a very good defense, goaltending, and they've got guys that can put the puck in the net. So that's going to be crucial. So if you had to pick a winner in this one, Ron, going Dallas? Dallas. Yeah. I'm taking Dallas as well. So the other West Coast series, Vegas Golden Knights versus the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, we know the Oilers in all their firepower, right? Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Evan Bouchard is actually 10 points so far.
Yeah, and this is what we're saying. You always have that. You have to have that guy that steps up, and it's almost never the star, right?
Yeah, you need those role players. And so important.
This is the guy that has stepped up, and he's making every moment count. It's whether or not that a player like that can continue it.
Yeah.
I mean, from history, it says that they usually do. But it doesn't mean that they're going to get through to the end. Edmonton's got a tough team here. This is a team that has some firepower as well. I mean, it's not Edmonton Oilers, but it's more of a better defensive squad. They're going to play better defense, but are they going to be able to handle that offense from Edmonton? That's going to be the thing, because they have some good players over there. And if you're not ready for it, if you don't have that defensive squad that can handle McDavid, Draisaitl, and now Bouchard,
Yeah.
it's going to be a tall task. It's going to be a tall task.
And one of the things that we've always criticized about Edmonton, the goaltending right now, Jack Campbell, 1.18 goals
Right.
against, second overall. They are the number one scoring team in the playoffs so far with 4.17 goals for.
Yeah, and if you can't score 2, then you're not winning.
Yeah. Ron, think about this. And I know they beat the Kings 4-2. You were high on the Kings.
Yeah, I was.
56.3% on the power play right now for Edmonton.
Insane.
Isn't it? More than half the time they're on a power play, they're going to score.
Yeah, and they just broke the season record for power play percentage. You know, this squad right here is the best power play in history. Let's put this in perspective. It is the best power play in history. That history that also included
Wayne
Gretzky,
Yeah.
Messier, Anderson, Curry, Coffee. You know, all these guys on the same team. Better than that. That says volumes.
Yeah.
If Vegas can't stay out of the box, they will get destroyed.
They're going to get destroyed. They're
Yes, I
also Vegas penalty kill 58.3%. Second worst. Good. Second worst. So when you talk about two trains colliding, one of those trains is like
one of those trains are made out of paper, right? And the other one is pure steel.
So that is a scary sight. To your point, I don't know if Vegas hasn't. They've had a good season, and they went through Winnipeg fairly easy, 4-1 in that series, which we were really high on Winnipeg as well. We thought Winnipeg would play a little better. What does Vegas have to do if they're going to get past Edmonton? Is it possible?
I don't even think it's possible for them to do it because their penalty killing is so bad. It's just a glaring problem. Yeah. I mean, even if you get like 2 penalties in a game, you're giving up at least 1 goal on power play. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? You have to score even strength a lot in order to beat this team. And I just don't see it. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't. And I'm looking at their stats right now. And Channel Stevenson 8 points, Mark Stone 8 points, Jack Eichel 5. So they're not even getting one guy that's just tearing it up. I don't know how you compete with Draisaitl, McDavid, and then you got Bouchard now. So they got 3 top scoring potentials in Edmonton where you don't see the same from Vegas. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult here. If you had to pick a winner, Ron, are you pretty sold on Edmonton as well?
I'm sold on Edmonton in this series.
So we both have Stars and Oilers in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk some Eastern Conference here. And you got the New Jersey Devils versus the Carolina Hurricanes. This looks like this is going to be another phenomenal series. What a brutal series with the Rangers and New Jersey, and neither team really wanted to let the other one score. Very physical. Did New Jersey maybe expend too much now? Carolina, right, has gone in. They beat the Islanders 4-2, but that series wasn't as close. Does that hurt New Jersey in this?
I think it does. Because there were so many highs and lows in that, and that takes a toll emotionally. So when you go in to Carolina, it's almost like it's going to be flat. That's the way I feel. That first game, I expect Carolina to probably run them out of the building. But you know, there are some guys that know how to win over there in New Jersey, and you know that just might be okay. They play well on the road, you know, and
yes. Yep.
I mean, look, I like both these teams. And to me, this just feels like the winner of this is winning the Stanley Cup. And I just feel like Carolina is this is their year.
Yeah, and then there's the injury concern now, right? Timo Meyer took a big shot at the end of the third period there. He
Yeah.
missed the rest of that game. So there's questions there. Look, the rookie goaltender there, uh, Icarus Schmidt,
Oh yeah.
1.38
Iris
goals.
Schmidt.
Right, Schmidt, 1.38 goals against. So he's basically turned into their. We've talked about this in the playoffs.
Yeah.
How important is that goaltender that gets hot at the right time that's going to make the difference?
Yeah.
This could help New Jersey, but they're also facing a team that's extremely good defensively. When you look at Carolina, 94.4% on the penalty kill. So even if you get a man advantage, they're not giving up a goal.
Right.
And honestly, New Jersey's at 16.7% from the power play, regardless. So they don't really score on that. So that kind of hurts New Jersey. They don't have any of those top guys. And Frederick Anderson, goaltending with Carolina right now, 0.91 goals against. He's number one in these playoffs.
Yeah. So I mean,
So,
you're figuring if you score a goal, the chances are you're going to win, right?
Yeah, right. Which is insane to think about. Like that's where Carolina's at. And listen, you said it from the beginning. As much as, and please don't be upset right now, you put Boston at number one on all those rankings. You said Carolina was the team to beat.
Yeah.
Right. And you said it. Sebastian Aho, 7 points right now. But they're getting total from every Brent Burns and Seth Jarvis. They've got a lot of guys that are putting points up. You can't stop one guy.
It's like Carolina just reminds me of a faster version of Boston, right? I mean, you don't have like that Pasternak there, but you have a lot of different players like a Marchand and a Bergeron. Now, if you can give me 6 of those guys,
Mm-hmm.
and which they got, I'll take that any day of the week because like they just get it done. They have a guy that can win faceoffs. They have a guy that can play defense against any player that you put out there. You know, they got a guy for it. You know, you need clutch goal scoring. They got a guy for it. You know, whatever they need, they have a guy for it. And this team, and like I said, all season long is the top of the iceberg in the NHL. And they just quietly rolled. And they were only a few points, you know, I mean, they were a lot of points behind Boston, but they were only, you know, a few points for the most part all season behind Boston. And they're quietly going into the playoffs and then, oh, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about what Boston was doing. Carolina was just waiting.
Yeah. So we also got to talk about the experience. You talked about it. They brought over Palat, the importance that he's meant to this team. You know, you've got Dougie Hamilton, who's been there a while. He's a veteran. So these guys have been there. So the Devils, as much as I did not give them a chance against the Rangers. We thought the Rangers firepower, what they picked up in the trade deadline, they were ready to go. Like that was the team to beat. They were just kind of coasting through the regular season. We said playoff time, they're going to take off.
Yeah.
This team was able to beat them.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of talent on their Rangers squad, a lot of talent.
Yeah.
So you could see the same thing here at Carolina, no? That they have a lot of talent. They're getting good goaltending. They have those guys that have won before and experience. Are we sleeping on the Devils here, though, and just saying, look, Carolina, we thought the Rangers were the better team. Carolina is the better team. Can these guys, with their experience in not being – there's no fear factor for the Devils.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if what happens to the Devils is similar to last year against the Bruins, where they just win at home. I mean, it could be kind of reversed this year. I mean, it could be, you know, the Devils go in and win in Carolina, and Carolina just wins in New Jersey.
You know? Which would benefit New Jersey.
Be surprised if this goes 7.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I still lean towards Carolina.
Okay. All right. I think I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Carolina as well. But I'm telling you, I think we're all sleeping on the Devils a little
New
bit.
Jersey is a scary team, though. That
Very scary
out
team.
of all the opponents on the opposite side of who we picked, that is the one that I'd worry about most.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I love it. I love the fact that we said best road record in the
And that's a
NHL this year.
difference
And
maker.
then what ended up happening? They lost the first two, they win the next two, and then they found a way to win a couple at home.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
good times. Last one in the Eastern Conference. It's the Florida Panthers versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. I just love the look as soon as I said it. Ron, Toronto, we talk about some firepower, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews.
Oh,
But again,
Kenny agreed with us with Carolina.
Kenny agreed with Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It should be. It should be a Carolina win. We would think so. But again, you talk about the firepower. Listen, the Panthers just defeated the greatest hockey team in NHL history during the regular season. They have something about them right now that's rolling. They are a very scrappy team. We saw it with Boston. Matthew Tkachuk is an agitator. The man seemed like he was always in some kind of play and just do they have enough? Can they do it twice, Ron, is I guess my question. Can the Florida Panthers do it again?
I think they can, and I think they will. Because I look at it this way. Okay, so look what the forechecking of that team did to the Boston defense, coughing up the puck over and over and over. Now, look, Toronto does not have that solid of a defense like the Bruins did. And if they come out and they play like that the entire way, Florida should be able to beat Toronto.
See, to me, this series, there's no clear-cut favorite because of the fact that Toronto's defense isn't very good.
Right.
But I also feel like I just think Boston played so poorly that Florida looked better than they actually were.
Right.
So I'm a little more hesitant because I don't think Florida's goaltending is good at all.
No.
So to me, I think that the firepower that Toronto has should be enough to get them through this series.
Well, it should. Like, look, all you have to do is just, put the puck on the net, but don't shoot it at the goaltender's crest of his jersey. I mean, how many times did we see that in the series with Boston? It's like, well, you either miss the net or shoot it right at his chest. Yeah, that's good. That's going to score a lot of goals.
Yeah. and that's what I'm saying. I think the Panthers, to me, as well as they play, well, I wouldn't even say that as well as they played. The fact that they beat Boston, I don't think they beat Boston. I think Boston beat themselves, if that makes sense. So I feel like Toronto is played well enough. Listen, they just beat Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, you cannot sleep on in the playoffs. We know what they've done for the last 3 years.
Right.
Even though they're older, and we said it, right? Eventually it was going to catch up to them. You still have to beat a quality team that knows how to get to the Stanley Cup.
Right.
They did that. The Bruins weren't that team.
No.
For Florida. So Florida I think the pressure Boston faced being the best team ever in history in the regular season, that played a factor. I think that Florida had an agitator that was just, you were worried about all the time with Tkachuk.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like Toronto, this is not a series Toronto should lose.
No, it isn't. It isn't. But would it surprise me? Look, if Florida comes out and plays like that, they can certainly do it. But they have to limit the opportunities at the other end. So, and that is key because let's face it, I saw Pasternak go with a 2-on-1 and he was all alone really in the middle and he decided to make an extra pass. And of course that didn't even connect. So you miss a shot on net. And with Pasternak being the puck carrier, I mean, how do you compensate for that? You got to shoot the puck there. But you don't think Austin Matthews is going to shoot that?
That's my
You don't
point.
think Marner is going to shoot that? They're going to shoot it.
Yeah. So I don't. Great season for the Florida Panthers because listen, what you were able to do, what you were able to accomplish, to me, I don't think
that just opens up a door for a higher seed somewhere else, right?
Yeah, pretty much is how we look at it. It's no different than we talk about when the 1 beats the 16 in the NCAA tournament, right? What do we say? What a great story. They're losing the next round. Right. And I know that's one and done, so it's a little different with a best of 7. But what I will say is this, that I think the Florida Panthers were that 16 seed. They beat the 1 seed.
Yeah, and they
but now they'll come back down
all that energy to beat that one, and then it always comes up flat.
Yeah. So if you had to pick a winner in this series,
Toronto.
You're going Toronto as well. So I think, listen, we've got them the same right now. Toronto, Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Stars and the Oilers in the Western Conference Finals. We're not going to pick a winner yet, Ron, because we are going to do when the finals, the Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals, we'll do another show and we'll talk about it and break it down then. But if the NHL, what's the best scenario for the NHL to save grace? To your point, a lot of the big market teams are out now. There's going to be a lot of, who are they looking at? Would it be like an Edmonton because of their history with Gretzky and those days? Would that be a team they'd want to see? Who would be the teams they'd want to see in the finals?
Okay, so looking at the teams that are available, if you go by the face of the NHL, then you want like an Austin Matthews and a McDavid, right? But then that would be 2 Canadian teams, and that is not what the NHL wants. They would want one, but they don't want both. They don't want both. So, I mean, looking at this, I think they'd want Edmonton and Carolina. I think that's what they would want. Or maybe, I mean, the Devils could be a good choice because they got good young players.
It's a big market.
And they'd want to have that. But Carolina is, one of those teams that are drawn to, outside of their area because of what they do, what they stand for. I mean, they're very fan friendly there in Carolina. So it would definitely, I think it would be Edmonton versus either the Devils or the Hurricanes.
Worst possible scenario, Seattle, Florida.
Yeah, that's probably the worst one.
Right? Think about that. As great as the Seattle story would be, that would be a very new market.
That would be horrendous for the NHL.
I think the NHL. So you got to think that right now they're sitting there going, okay, we need these 2 teams out.
Yeah, because you can have Vegas in there. That's good. You could have Dallas in there with all those young stars and some aging stars as well. But having Seattle versus Florida would be, I mean, you have Kachuk, but
yeah. So, Ron, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate your hockey insight every single time we do these shows. I know it's paining you right now to talk hockey, but this is how we get through it, Ron. We'll continue to talk through it, and we're going to continue to do it. And so what that means is tune in this Friday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our regularly broadcasted show. It's on Rhode Island Broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. It is live. It is fan interactive. You can join us and talk about any of the topics that we're covering or any other topics that you want to cover, and we'll talk about it. But we love talking sports. Continue to support our show. Continue to follow us. All our social media platforms have been scrolling on that bottom there. And I can't wait for Friday, Ron, because I'm sure we're going to just bring some more heat.
By Friday, when the Celtics are...
Yeah, then I can rant. You got your Bruins rant. I may have my Celtics rant at that point, so tune in for that.
It could be a disaster.
In Boston, yes. Yes, it could be pretty ugly. Ron, I want you to take care. I want you to stay safe and healthy because I need you for Fridays. So don't be too upset. We'll get past it. There's always next year.
If I was GM, I'd be like getting rid of players left and right.
Already cutting people. Yep. All right.
Done.
Thank you again for your time. Fans out there that joined live, thank you. If you're watching afterwards, just share us, follow us. And all we ever ask for every single show is peace on earth.
Take care, everybody.